Call me crazy, but I think someone who served Canada in uniform has the right to drive whatever kind of car, truck, or van they want. Apparently, not everyone feels the same way. 85-year-old, he's 85, Ken Hallett, Welland, Ontario. He served in a Canadian uniform in the Korean War. He finds his Toyota car is getting him a traitor label. That's right. Never mind that Toyota has plants all over Ontario and South Korea is actually an ally of ours. Just take a look for yourself. As you can see, even Japanese and German cars are suspect because of their histories in World War II. Seems whoever wrote that note isn't all that up to date on foreign affairs. Folks, you know about our deep appreciation here for Canada's veterans. We don't have much to say to people who question their patriotism, especially based on what they're driving. But this one note, this level of disrespect for our vets has been combined with a strong level of disrespect for reality. So for more, let's turn to Toronto Sun comment editor Adrienne Batra. And many may not know this, Adrienne, but you've got lots of military experience yourself. I
do. I never had the opportunity to serve overseas, Charles, but certainly can appreciate the work and the commitment and the time and their lives on the line that the men and women in Canada do for us each and every day. So you and I can be afforded the opportunity to sit here and speak so freely and candidly about something that when I first heard this story, and you and I have talked about this on your show before, this sort of compounding disrespect that we're seeing for veterans year after year after year. There seems to be more and more stories like this coming out. I hope they catch whomever put this note on the car. I hope they prosecute whomever this is and shame them and embarrass them because, frankly, not only are they clueless on of course, history, but to do this to an 85-year-old man, to do this to someone who served, to do this to someone who probably was just going about his day doing whatever he felt he needed to do in order to live in our country, that just is the height of absurdity and the height of disrespect. So with our new social media tools, people do like to embarrass other people into coming forward and putting names and faces out there of people who they've seen doing crazy things, like the guy that was running over Canadian flags and poppies in one of the parks in Toronto. I hope someone catches this person and exposes them for who they are.
You know, I'm loath to turn everything into a left-wing, right-wing thing, but why is it that in today's Canada, on the progressive side, being a member of the military is being seen as being part of some extremist right-wing group? I mean, you've got to go to the system of education for that one, Adrienne. Am I wrong?
Well, I think that their public school system has a great deal to do with that. It's become more of a place for indoctrination than it has a place of learning, and that's unfortunate. And we sadly see that in many of the test scores that are coming out from our public school system. But I mean, Charles, I don't know if I'm prepared to just wholly dismiss it as that altogether. Maybe it starts in public school. It's perpetuated perhaps in the home and in university. But I think part of the challenge for the Canadian military is we've always been pegged with this moniker as we're peacekeepers. You know, we wear the blue helmet and you know, we serve in the UN and do all these things. But we're far more than that. We've gone into countries. We've helped rebuild them from the ground up. We teach people medical skills. We teach them logistics. We teach them how to, you know, be farmers and agriculture. We teach people in various countries how to do those sorts of things. That's the message I think that's lacking. Perhaps it's part of a responsibility for those that are so very much pro-military to counter many of the things that are, you know, either propagated in school or in universities or whatever the case may be, or frankly, even in the media. Often we get confused, of course, with the American military, who's been generally far more aggressive in history than the Canadian military has been. But we also have blood on our hands. We should be proud of the work that our men and women in uniform have done in order, as I said, to do the things that we all get to do, you know, drive our cars, you know, without being accused of being a traitor, sit in TV and give our opinion without worried about being shot. These are the sorts of things that I think the new generation of Canadians don't know, and we have a responsibility to ensure that they are aware of it.
Adrian, as you know, in one of your former adopted hometowns right here in Winnipeg, the Liberals had a so-called debate or an appearance or an event, whatever you want to call that sad spectacle that was held here at the Metropolitan Theatre over the weekend. I want to just ask you a quick question on this, and then we'll move on to something completely different. How many questions do you think were posed about military, Liberals, a Liberal government down the road, if they have one supporting the military? How many? What's the number?
My guess would be zero, Charles, because even if you
Absolutely.
look at the Liberal government's history on gutting the military in the 90s. That's where Jean Chrétien found a lot of spending cuts to be had. So now you see a reversal of that. You see Prime Minister Stephen Harper sort of beefing up the military. Now, to be sure, the Department of National Defence also has a responsibility not only to the soldiers, but to the taxpayers of Canada to ensure the dollars that they're spending and they're receiving are done wisely, not making sure that contracts aren't sole source, procurement processes are followed. But overall, I would say that I think the average Canadian would want our men and women who are going to be serving in combat and in a hostile environment, they want them to be prepared. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that they weren't asked one question on it, because they don't want to be seen as those fear-mongering, war-mongering Liberals, but Adrian, they don't want to be seen like that.
Let me just say this. There are lots of ways to gut the military, but the number one way isn't the Jeeps and the uniforms and the screwdrivers. The number one way to gut the military is to ignore the military, to ignore our proud military heritage, and to disrespect it and to disparage it. It is the equivalent of putting that stupid note on that veteran's car.
It is.
I just wanted to get that off my chest, because it's an embarrassment. In the few moments that we have left, there's an important trial going on in the Toronto area, and it has to do with the killing of a police officer.
It does. This is something that I remember very closely, Charles. I remember the day when Sergeant Russell was killed. I was working in the mayor's office at the time, and of course we were in close contact with the Toronto Police Service, who were keeping our office apprised of what was going on. And I remember hearing at the moment that when the Sergeant Russell had succumbed to his injuries, I mean, a just sinking feeling in my stomach. Then, of course, we were overwrought by the images of his widow and his young son, who is the same age as my son. I also had the honor of attending Sergeant Russell's funeral. Never have I seen, the sea of blue like that before, and the support that has been given. So now the trial has begun for the accused, Richard Katchker, in the case. He, of course, his defense team, Charles, is claiming some mental health issues. From some of the information that the Toronto Sun crime reporter Sam Pisano has in our paper today, people can read it on torontosun.com. There is some sort of suggestions that throughout the entire day, when he went on this rampage, when he stole the snowplow and rammed it into Sergeant Russell, he had sort of started the day on a collision course with police from the beginning. He was yelling at people on the streets, trying to pick up pedestrians to come go for a ride. So this is going to be a case that we're watching very, very closely, because it's important to remember it's been a very long time since a police officer in the city of Toronto has been killed.
Adrian, thank you very much. We'll follow it very closely. TorontoSun.com for that very important trial. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Charles.